Cena, Orton, better than WrestleMania. But how was the rest of the show? And what are my thoughts on that very long segment after the match where they teased like somebody was going to come out and nobody came? Welcome to 3 Count Commentary. We're going to talk about Backlash from May the 10th, 2025. And we're going to start with the main event. John Cena versus Randy Orton. One final time. Let me tell you this. It was better than WrestleMania, but they were moving at an absolutely glacial pace. It was like a Greg Valentine versus Ronnie Garvin match from like the late 80s or something. It was, whoa, yikes. And then it turned into one of those Attitude Era fests where there was tons of finisher spamming, ref bumps. There was nothing in this match really stuck, but nothing stunk, you know? The early part of the match was as basic as you could possibly get. They were shoulder blocking each other to the mat, so they were taking bumps, but they weren't doing much anything else. They were putting each other in headlocks and sleepers, and I'm thinking which one of them is going to be the first to break out the bear hug. The first big spot was an attitude adjustment that was countered into an RKO, which I believe was a beautiful spot. There was no attempt at a pinfall, though. I guess they were selling the AA, which was sensible. The second RKO came from John Cena doing his usual shoulder tackles. On the second shoulder tackle, Randy countered into an RKO, which was beautiful. Great. Then we got our first ref bump. It's so many ref bumps. Then we got our second ref bump when Cena shoved Orton, and Orton knocked the referee into the stairs. From there, Randy Orton smashed John Cena onto the desk with an attitude adjustment. Then he smashed him through a table with the attitude adjustment. Then they got in the ring. Orton had him pinned. A third referee came out. There was a kick out. And then John Cena hit that referee with a belt. At that point in time, there was an RKO. Cena was pinned again. Nick Aldis and a bunch of other guys ran out to the ring to try to wake up the referee. Orton was frustrated, started RKOing all of those guys. It was like 7 RKOs in a row. Then we get back to the match when a referee returns. And then Randy Orton's going to punch John Cena in the head. And then here comes R-Truth, of all people. R-Truth just gets an RKO. While Randy Orton's back is turned, Cena hits Orton in the nuts. Hit him with an attitude adjustment. 1, 2, 3. Cena went. I think he hit him with the belt, and then he pinned him. 1, 2, 3. John Cena wins. Let me tell you, man. Oh my goodness. There's booked, and then there's overbooked, and then there's this. This felt like something kind of out of the late 90s, where all rules and regulations have collapsed and we're living in chaos world. But Randy was more blown up, I think, than Cena was. And Cena's the older of the two, but I think Randy just physically, I'm not sure he could continue to go at this level. You know, just not sure he can continue to go. I'm fairly sure Cena can't continue to go like this. They paced themselves pretty well, so it didn't look like they were dying out there, but it also wasn't a whole lot done given the amount of time they had. This was one of those matches where it was less is more, and then it became, nope, never mind, you need more, and then you need more than more. Like they did 2 table spots. It did the same thing back to back. It was a solid enough match. It was better than WrestleMania because the pace was a little bit faster. And Orton as a babyface was more of a take no shit babyface. So when Cena thumped him in the eye, he thumped Cena in the eye back. He took advantage of the referees being down. You know, like he really is sort of a vicious babyface. And the story was that Orton kept trying to punch Cena in the head. And each punch was foiled by either Cena moving or Cena countering it in some way. So it was almost like Randy Orton was not relying on the RKO, but was truly trying to end John Cena like he ended all the other legends. and it ended up biting him in the ass in the end. After the match, John Cena wanted the music turned off so that he could say he needs competition, and then that was it. He mulled around for a while. It seemed like he was waiting for somebody's music to play, but the crowd booed him and booed him and booed him, and then a subtle "Thank you, Cena" chant started, and his facial expression started to soften a little bit. He mulled around some more, lifted the belt some more, and then he started to hang his head, started to stare at the championship, hanging his head a little more. He looked almost guilty, looked distraught, looked a little upset, a little perturbed, a little perplexed. And I'm thinking to myself, are they... First, I thought they were building up a new contender. I thought there was a bunch of people talking about Brock Lesnar being there, but I wasn't thinking about Brock. I was thinking about other people at the time. But to tease that somebody else was coming out and then nobody comes out there, only for it to be Cena, doing some physical storytelling in terms of his expressions, tells me that they giving up on this heel turn and they're considering turning him back babyface. I don't see how you could. It would be a nice try. At this point, I think you got to ride it out since you've already done it. It hasn't been that long. It's only been like 3 months. But if it's not working out, it is not working out. But there's still so much more left. I'm guessing that the more he does these horrible things, the more he feels bad about himself for doing it. And that's going to be the story. But they really did tease that somebody else is coming out there, so I was expecting more than that. So some rando on Twitter put out a statement saying that at Saturday night's main event, John Cena is going to defend the title versus R-Truth. Just got a lot of the internet buzzing because this was announced before R-Truth interfered in the main event. And Truth, of course, was on SmackDown cheering for Cena. And people are kind of, how are we going to get R-Truth to want to fight John Cena? Which, of course, doesn't make sense because he's a John Cena fan. And how are we going to turn this thing around in 2 weeks? And it's a rando on Twitter, man. I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into it. But it's worth talking about. It's worth discussing. That said, if it were to occur that John Cena is going to wrestle R-Truth, it's on Saturday night's main event. Hulk Hogan wrestled the Genius on Saturday night's main event. It wouldn't be that big a deal. I know a lot of the AEW fans they are already mocking the idea because R-Truth has not won a singles match since Obama was in office. Almost literally hasn't won a singles match since Obama was in office. And to have him wrestle for the title is absurd. But WWE is not about wins and losses. It's about the story. And if the story makes sense to why John Cena and R-Truth are going to have that match, then I'm willing to accept it. But you got to convince me of two things. One, that this match must happen. And two, that R-Truth is going to take the match seriously. If it's going to be a comedy match or some comedy bullshit, then I'm probably not going to be interested in that. Now, what about the alternative? That Cena teams up with R-Truth. That Cena and R-Truth are a team and they wrestle two other guys. Who are the two other guys? If it was to be versus Cody and Orton, I would like that. That would be fine. Because Truth is a John Cena supporter. So it wouldn't matter who you put on the other side. And I think it would be better that way anyway. As R-Truth is a guy who's had his character tied to John Cena for many years now. I think over 10 years. He's been tied to John Cena. And, with the whole Little Jimmy and all this sort of stuff, John Cena being his childhood hero. Wanted to end that story or end that angle, I can understand why you would want to do that, and it would make sense to do that. But I don't know. I'm not so sure about Truth versus Cena one-on-one. I'm also not so sure about John Cena wasting a match on R-Truth. I hate to put it that way because I think everybody likes R-Truth, but it is a waste of a match when you have people that Cena has never wrestled before that you could possibly put him in there with. Why on earth would you put him in there with R-Truth, who, again, even in storyline, even in kayfabe, doesn't deserve it, and it doesn't make sense to do. But a tag team match, maybe. That might actually make sense. So we'll see how it shakes out. For Randy, no doubt they're going to do a suspension gimmick because he RKO'd Nick Aldis again. So no doubt he's about to get written off TV because he worked hard enough, guys. He worked at WrestleMania. He's been throwing RKOs all around. He needs a vacation. It's vacation time, buddy. So no doubt he's about to go away for a spell. I'm sure he'll be looped right back in when they got something for him to do. The next match was Subverting Expectations 101. Gunther defeated Pat McAfee in a match that was strangely competitive. It was a little too competitive, and but it was fun in the sense that the crowd was really into it, emotionally and athletically. Like, it was athletically pleasing, but it also was emotionally pleasing. Though I did not like the very end. So Pat McAfee, for starters, wasn't wearing any wrestling gear. He was just wearing like regular slacks. But he was doing traditional wrestling athletics in an arm wringer, then the kip up, rolling and kip up. I'm like, what the hell? McAfee countered a German suplex off the top rope, which was actually pretty good. He landed on his feet. He lands a couple of kicks, these punts, which are kind of part of his character because he was a punter in the NFL. Michael Cole was 100% in the corner of Pat McAfee as McAfee is getting chopped and abused in the ring. He's finally got put into the Boston Crab, and Pat McAfee is refusing to tap out, and Michael Cole actually leaves the desk to actually manage Pat McAfee. He's banging on the ring apron, trying to inspire Pat McAfee to keep fighting. McAfee eventually gets to the ropes. After this, Gunther is upset. He pulls Michael Cole into the ring, but Pat McAfee actually saves him. Then McAfee actually gets Gunther down, and Michael Cole grabs the leg, and they pull the old WrestleMania 5, the Rick Rude, Bobby the Brain Heenan spot with the trick they pulled on the Ultimate Warrior. Except this time, Gunther actually kicked out. Very lucky on Gunther's part. Then Pat McAfee gets caught in a sleeper. Then he fires out of the sleeper? Of all the people who have been put in this sleeper hold and have never been able to escape it, Pat McAfee nearly escapes it before getting choked out officially. He didn't submit, but he couldn't continue, and the match was stopped, and Gunther was the winner of the match. The crowd reaction throughout the night was very good. They elevated when Pat McAfee got some offense in. They elevated even higher when Michael Cole got involved. They went up even higher when Michael Cole got pulled into the ring. And then they dropped as Gunther started to take over. And it dropped, of course, as Gunther seemed like he was going to win. So this was actually pretty well structured. Pretty well done. I think it's disrespectful to a lot of the actual wrestlers who have put Gunther over in the past, however. If I remember correctly, like, Dominic Mysterio was laughed at and treated like a complete and total joke, and Gunther basically wiped his feet all over Dominic Mysterio at one point. And he's done that to many other people in the booking of Gunther throughout his run, and these people did not look competitive against Gunther at all. But here is Pat McAfee, the guy that Gunther promised that he was going to choke to death. And not only did he not choke him to death, he didn't even bust him open. Like, there wasn't even any blood. So I was greatly disappointed. Like, yes, Pat McAfee took the chops, and he was getting hit pretty hard in there, but it wasn't nearly what I expected it to be. It didn't feel like it was what it needed to be, which is Gunther dog walking Pat McAfee. That's what it needed to be. Pat McAfee needed to go in there, and you need to fear that Pat McAfee was going to die. But it didn't. It just felt like a very competitive match. I guess a very game Pat McAfee. And I don't like that. That just didn't sit well with my spirit. And the match was fine. I can't complain about the quality of the contest. But I just don't think it was necessary for the contest to look that way and to be booked that way. After the match, however, Gunther actually offered a handshake to Pat McAfee, which made this even worse because we went from Gunther saying that only the grace of God can save you to now Gunther is shaking Pat McAfee's hand. Oh, get out of here. What is this? I get it that maybe he was a better fighter than you expect, but that's not what we need in this situation here. I think in order for Gunther to get his heat back, he needed to be as vicious as possible. And going back to being, somewhat respectable is not helping matters at all. I don't think Gunther needed to have that positivity. Like, he needs to be super negative right now. He needs to be in a bad space where, he got embarrassed and humiliated at WrestleMania. Now he's going to embarrass and humiliate somebody himself. Get back into that killer instinct. But for some odd reason, he was booked to shake Pat McAfee's hand. And that was incredibly gross. Dominic Mysterio defeats Penta to maintain the Intercontinental Championship. I am sick of Judgment Day. I'm absolutely burned out. Every Judgment Day match for 2 or 3 years has been nothing but a continuous succession of run-ins. Run-in after run-in after run-in. There's people all over the place. It's beyond the NWO at some point, And this is a problem. It's a problem. This match was perfectly fine as long as it was just these two guys in the ring. When Dominic and Penta were doing their thing in the ring, it was fine. The moment Carlito showed up, I was taken out of the match. You have to figure out a way for Dominic to cheat without there needing to be 5 people running into the ring. It's ridiculous. The referee had to eject Finn Balor, Carlito, and JD McDonough just so El Grande Americano could run in. It's like, get the fuck out of here. Really, this is ridiculous. Dominic Mysterio is a slimy, sneaky heel. You want to protect Penta, have Dominic cheat. That's all you need to do. We don't need all these run-ins, not all the time. Sometimes, sure, but all the time? And then here's the thing. Not only is that, but how long are we going to tease this Finn Balor leaving the Judgment Day thing? He got caught with that chair on purpose so that he could be ejected. That was the whole point of the angle. That's why they brought them out there. So that Finn Balor could get caught with the chair and get ejected. So he could at least say, brother, I tried to help. And, Dominic would have lost, but he would have, I tried to help. Bullshit. Stop doing this. It's not even really helping Dominic at this point. It's not really helping Penta either. Because it's expected now that there's going to be, every Judgment Day match is going to have 4 people running in. That's absurd. Every week? Twice a week? That's absurd, man. No way. Come on. You got to stop that. This match would have been fine, but I'm really soured on all of these Judgment Day run-ins. I'm sick of it. And you can say, well, this is a faction. This is what factions do. Not all the time. Not every fucking match. Not every fucking match. These guys have to be capable of doing something by themselves. Every match? Win, lose, or draw every match? Whether it's a tag team match, triple threat match. It's ridiculous. And they still teasing a breakup. That's the thing that really is driving me up the fucking wall. Because not only are you doing this every match, but now you're still teasing a breakup for 2 years. They've been teasing a breakup for 2 years, and they're still doing tons of run-ins. It's ridiculous. Stop this. As good as these two guys were, it was absolutely tainted the moment Finn Balor came out there. I was disgusted. I'm not even Finn Balor, Carlito. I was disgusted. Anyway, El Grande Americano headbutt Penta with the loaded mask, because why not more run-ins? At that point, Dominic hits the frog splash to win the match. Yay. Back to something actually great. Lyra Valkyria defeated Becky Lynch. This was a hell of a match between these girls. A hell of a contest. Now, the problem I have here is the same problem I had with the main event. There was a lot of finisher spamming, particularly from Becky Lynch. She hit her finisher 3 times, and Lyra kicked out all 3 times. But we saw some really good character work here from Lyra. Becky Lynch at one point was smacking Lyra in the face, and Lyra fired up on her, only for Becky Lynch to smack her even more. I like the armbar exchanges, particularly when Lyra got Becky in the armbar. I thought that was pretty cool. I like the psychology of Becky Lynch tricking the referee by grabbing the chair just so the referee could take the chair and Becky could take the turnbuckle off. And then them never actually using the turnbuckle. But it was all just part of the misdirection. As later on in the match, the referee notices that the turnbuckle is missing. While she's replacing it or trying to replace it, Lyra Valkyria hits her finisher. And the referee has to drop the turnbuckle to turn back around to count and only gets a 2 count. And then, so the referee kind of, jobbed out Lyra there. You think, oh, Lyra had a chance. And the referee screwed it up. So you're thinking, okay, if Lyra loses, you could always blame the referee. That being said, Becky got rolled up in a nice little finish. It was simple. It was very pro wrestling, very Bret Hart-like finish. Lyra was holding her nose. It seemed like her nose might have been broken or something. This happened after, I believe it was a punch that Becky Lynch threw to her face. I think it was supposed to be like a poke in the eye, ended up getting her in the nose. But that was very interesting. The internet has been losing their mind over seeing Lyra Valkyria's fiance, who looks like, I don't know, he works at FedEx or something. I don't know. I think he's a wrestler though, but he doesn't. He's a very unassuming guy. Very much looks like an office worker. But the match was incredibly solid. After the match, Becky Lynch attacked Lyra Valkyria again and locked her in the disarmor and just tortured her in an armbar for a little while before storming out. I think they did a really good job here. I think Lyra needed to win this match. I think Becky Lynch was out to prove something, and likely out to prove that she's not back to take people's spots. And Big E, because of course he would be this guy, was going out there and basically saying, yeah, look at the men. Randy Orton's almost 50 and John Cena's almost 50. Like, why can't Becky Lynch come back? Like, nobody ever says she can't come back. They're just saying she's old. And it's time for some young people to come in. And guess what? I feel the exact same way in the main events with the guys. We don't need to have main events where guys basically are wrestling with concrete in their shoes. But, it is what it is at this point. Back to the women's match, however. I think the match was very good. I think Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch have a really good chemistry. I like Becky Lynch's frenetic energy. She overacts when it comes to people kicking out of the manhandle slam that she kind of half-ass does. And she doesn't even do it like a legitimate rock bottom. She just kind of bends over with the slam. And then after she kicked out the second time, Becky was acting like, she had kicked the baby's crib or something like this. She was really overreacting. But overall, I liked the match. The first match on the show, Jacob Fatu defeats Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre, and LA Knight to retain the United States Championship. Jacob Fatu lands a Samoan drop on the barricade to Damian Priest. It was not as devastating as it sounds, considering Jacob Fatu was standing on the floor. So he basically just ran his back into the barricade. There was a lot of moves they did to each other. It's a fatal 4-way match, so you already know how this goes. Then Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre managed to fight themselves outside the ring, up the ramp, and over to a production area where Damian Priest choke slammed Drew McIntyre off of some kind of platform onto a table. And apparently Drew McIntyre really hit his head on the floor and required medical attention after the show or during the show. So who knows how bad that was. But that was to write them both out of the match. The match continues as LA Knight and Jacob Fatu have their fight. And then Solo Sikoa shows up because, again, when it comes to the bloodline, there has to be crazy run-ins. I mean, look at this card, by the by. In the first match, run-ins. Third match, run-ins. Fourth match, run-ins. Fifth match, run-ins. 4 of the 5 matches on this show had run-ins. Is this booked by Vince Russo or what? Now, technically, I guess you could say Michael Cole wasn't a run-in. He was dragged into the ring against his will. But some kind of outside agitator managed to get the attention of one of the... Like, this is one of the tropes about WWE I've been complaining about for 5-10 years. The amount of times the music just starts playing, somebody is sitting outside the ring and they start doing something to get the attention of somebody in the ring. Somebody gets attacked outside the ring that has nothing to do with the people in the ring, and somehow it distracts people in the ring. It's too much. It's too many people floating around outside the ring at all times. It's just simply chaos all the time. Sometimes, sure, but all the time, that's just nonsense. Everybody has some rival that has to interfere in the match every single fucking time. Like, and then when you book the show, why would you book the show to have so many different run-ins? If you know that you're going to book a run-in heavy main event, maybe you shouldn't book 2 other matches on the show to have run-ins too. For Christ's sake. So Solo Sikoa shows up. He actually pulls Jacob Fatu off the announce desk as LA Knight was going to elbow drop him on it. LA Knight threatens to thrash Solo Sikoa and then gets blindsided by a mountain of human meat. Once the camera gets on his face, Michael Cole says, "It's Jeff Cobb." And I was like, yeah, it is Jeff Cobb. Why is Jeff Cobb here? And Jeff Cobb beats up LA Knight, smushes him against the ring post and everything. Basically just, tenderizes LA Knight so Jacob Fatu could get the pin and win the match. Jacob doesn't look happy about this, but Solo has a new enforcer. And Jeff Cobb is now in the bloodline? Is that how this works? Or, I don't know. We're off the rails. Jeff Cobb, not Samoan, not Tongan. He's from Hawaii, and his people are from Guam. Yes, he's Guamanian. We're just all Polynesian pro wrestling at this point. It don't even matter what island they're from at right now. I don't think there's any other wrestlers from Guam I can think of. So, look, Jeff Cobb, I think, a good 10 years over the hill. I know he spent a lot of time in Japan. Those people love him over there. He was expected to join AEW. They probably would have really loved him there. But the allure of the big money WWE and a pretty good spot. He's probably going to be feuding with LA Knight now. Teaming up with Solo Sikoa, probably a tag team situation. The Tongans are out, so now the Guamanian is in. And look, we don't need any more 40-year-old guys. Jeff Cobb is 42. Jeff Cobb's heyday was in like 2016 when he was under a mask in Lucha Underground. He ain't really done much of anything on a major level since. Sure, he's been, traveling over to Japan and he's done some stuff. And I think Ring of Honor, and he popped up here and there in AEW, but the height of his career was being Matanza in Lucha Underground. Brother, I promise you, that's a good 10 years ago. He can't move like that anymore. Like this, that's not the guy you just signed. We don't need all these fat fucking Polynesians, and they don't need to be 40. Why are we signing 40-year-old Polynesians? You have NXT filled with people who need spots on this card. Why are we bringing in more fucking old people? Triple H has utterly and completely failed when it comes to getting prime young talent in free agency. Everybody he's brought over, from Ricky Starks to the Motor City Machine Guns, has been at least 35. At least 35. I think probably the only guy that he really got that was a coup was Jacob Fatu. Everybody else was either kicked out of AEW or had wrestled there like Jeff Cobb and didn't want to stay. But come on, man. I get it. People think he's a lethal shooter. Like he's really good. And he is. He's got a shooting background. But he's 42 and not necessary for the roster. Not necessary at all. So, I'm whatever, man. I'm just so used to over time the roster gets younger, but the roster keeps getting fucking older. It's just older and older. Like Jake, look, Solo Sikoa isn't the strongest member of the Bloodline. He's showing a pretty decent amount of personality now. He's stopped trying to be like Roman Reigns and starting to be more like himself. People liked him more when he was the street champion in NXT than they do now. But ultimately, him being the portal that brings in all of these 40-year-old thugs is nonsense. Like, he don't know any young people. He don't got no peers. Like, why is everybody you hanging out with like a decade and a half older than you? That's crazy to me, man. He bringing every unk he knows. This ain't all unk federation. I hate to break it to you. And this is a Triple H fault, clearly. But what can you do, man? Jeff Cobb, I have not seen him wrestle extensively in a while. I probably saw a match in New Japan recently, but nothing that really jumped out at me as if it was complete and totally necessary. I know that his New Japan run ended with him and TJP having problems because they were members of the same faction. Look, TJP is worthless. He's not even worth talking about, all right? He ain't worth arguing with. His wife is upset about something or other. Jeff Cobb just got a big fat WWE contract. He don't give a fuck about TJP. TJP washed out of WWE in 2019, 2018 or something like that. And there's nothing more privileged than being a boring, generic white boy in Japan. You want to talk about white privilege? Go to Japan. From Carl Anderson to half those Bullet Club fucking guys. Not even half, because half means 50%. I mean over half, maybe 80-85% of every white male in New Japan is painfully mediocre and would not get any attention in his home country or in Europe. But he goes over to Japan, he's treated like some big shot. Those people are fucking bums. That being said, that's what happened when Jeff Cobb left New Japan, as he wasn't making any friends over there. Anyway, he's in WWE now. There's nothing we can do about it. We just gotta hope that he's booked appropriately. So we'll see how it turns out. Overall, I think Backlash was a pretty good show from top to bottom. The only match I think that did not deliver was Gunther versus Pat McAfee. And that's because my expectations for the match were very different than what happened. But the match was better than it should have been, but it was still pretty good. And I was sort of upset about Penta versus Dominic Mysterio because of all the run-ins. But again, that should have been expected. Orton and Cena was better than I thought it was going to be. It was around what I thought it was going to be. But Becky and Lyra was very good. The Fatal 4-Way was solid. So it was all around decent show. Let me know what you guys think. I'll talk to you folks later. Peace.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session. But you got an affection for no progression. Regression, the best don't